Okay, good morning to everybody. We are starting our shiur. It's good to see you. And hopefully, Bezrat Hashem, soon enough, we will do the shiur live and not only on Zoom, but okay, we're still waiting. Anyway, we have again two parshiyot, Acharei Mot Kedoshim, after the death of Kedoshim, of the Holy One, or as the Torah tells us, Kedoshim to you, we should be holy people. Holy should we be. But before we go in touching the parsha, I want to understand something very interesting. We are now standing in the middle of Sfirat HaOmer, counting the Omer. Is counting the Omer a bad thing or a good thing? Is it a joyful thing or a sad thing? So why do we count the Omer? We count the Omer in order to build ourselves, to be prepared to receive the Torah. So it's a good counting. It's not a bad counting. So why are we mourning on what happened, the plague that happened to the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva? And another question: if we're already mourning on those 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, why do we only mourn on them? If we want to mourn on all the Talmidei Chachamim that died in certain circumstances, some of them were plagues and were killed on Kiddush Hashem, etc., we can mourn the whole year around. And then, why did the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, all those 24,000 Talmidim die? And why did it happen on Sfirat HaOmer? Are all those things connected? Is there a connection? Definitely there is. So let's understand what is the connection. And what's the meaning of miktzat minagei avelut? And a lot of people have a mistake in this idea. They think that we are mourning like mourning on the 3 weeks and Tisha B'Av, the 9 days, the week of Tisha B'Av, and there is a big difference. Here, only miktzat minagei avelut, only a small, let's say, minhagim of avelut. But not like in 3 weeks or the 9 days, and definitely not like the week of Tisha B'Av and Tisha B'Av itself. Because at the end of the day, this counting is a happy counting. Okay, so let's be happy. Why are we not allowed to cut our hair and not hear music and all the other things? Because Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died. Okay, so what? But here is a big lesson. In our parsha, is one of the most famous phrases that we all know and we all use, but unfortunately, it's not enough to use it, it's not enough to say it, we have to practice it. Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha. You should love thy neighbor, thy friend, as you love yourself. And also people forget that the pasuk doesn't end here. It's written ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha, Ani Hashem, I am God. And this is an important point because you cannot have a real love to God, a real love to your friend without the love to God. You cannot have love to God without love to your friend. And you cannot have, in other words, love to your friend if you don't understand and fear God. Or, in other nice word, love God. So let's understand what's going on. Rabbi Akiva said, "Ve'ahavta le'racha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah." That's a rule. Let's say that's a big rule in the Torah. It's a klal gadol. And Rashi, when we go into Rashi on the spot, let's see what Rashi is saying. "Ve'ahavta le'racha kamocha ani Hashem," says Rashi. "Amar Rabbi Akiva ze klal gadol b'Torah." Said the Siftei Chachamim says down there. The Siftei Chachamim, by the way, the Ikar Siftei Chachamim is if we want to understand Rashi, sometimes Rashi is telling us things that we don't really connect to them or understand them enough. So, or they're not clear enough. So the Siftei Chachamim comes and explains to us why Rashi said what he said, or sometimes he even talks a little more in order to make it clear to us what is behind Rashi's word. And here also, look what the Siftei Chachamim says. Kmo she'amar Hillel HaZaken, like what Hillel HaZaken said. What did Hillel HaZaken say? whatever you hate that people do to you, you don't do to others. And then says an unbelievable thing. זהו כל התורה כולה. That is all the Torah. That is all the Torah. And if we look in the Gemara, what is said, so the end is of this phrase, and all the rest is an explanation of this. In other words, the basic, the essence of all the Torah is ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Or in other words, don't do to your friend what you hate that people do to you. And Rashi here goes into mitzvot ben adam lamakom, mitzvot ben adam lechavero. Is this, if this is the basic of the whole Torah, but this is really talking about the mitzvot ben adam lechavero. Those are the, let's say, the mitzvot that are between you and your fellow man. But what with the mitzvot between you and God? Ben adam lamakom. What's with them? But the real truth is that they are connected. And this is why the pasuk doesn't end ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, but it's written ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, ani Hashem, I am God. And how does it connect? So first of all, there are a lot of ways how it connects. But the basic thing is very simple. The Rambam in Hilchot Tshuva says, if you, in order to do tshuva, you have to understand and realize the picture that will help you to do tshuva. You have to look at the whole world like it's even. Like the bad and the good are even. In other words, every action that is going to happen now in the world is going to change the balance. Now, it means that you, as an individual, can change the balance of the whole world. In other words, if it is balanced and there is no, let's say, no right or wrong, up or down, it's exactly in the middle. In other words, every action you make right now is going to change the balance of the world. In other words, if you sin, the whole world is going to be on the bad side. If you do good, a mitzvah, the whole world is going to be on the good side. Unbelievable. Everything depends on you. Wow.
Wow.
And now you understand that it doesn't matter what mitzvah we're talking about, it's going to have an influence on your friend. In other words, mitzvot sheben adam lachavero and mitzvot sheben adam lamakom are connected together. That's one of the basic explanations which explained to us that really to love your fellow man means to do all the mitzvahs and to be aware that what you do has an effect on everybody. Okay, now what is this to do with Sfirat HaOmer? What is this to do with all the mourning? Because what is Sfirat HaOmer? Sfirat HaOmer is really counting the Omer is written in two places. Once it's written Slecha, that as an individual you have to count, and in the other place it's written Lachem, as a general, like everybody, like the whole community, the whole of Am Yisrael, everybody. So, what does it mean? Halacha says that counting the Omer, if you want to do the mitzvah, you can only do it by yourself. In other words, if the chazan says the blessing and counts, and you say amen, you are not yotze. You didn't do the mitzvah. You have to do it by yourself. Like there are other mitzvahs that when somebody is doing the blessing and you are also yotze by it. But this mitzvah, no. You can be yotze by the blessing, but not by the counting. The counting you have to count by yourself. Why? Why is it so important that you should count by yourself? Because counting the Omer is really building each one of us with his own talents and abilities to take us what we've got in, what God gave us. And while we do this, we unfortunately can get to the point of thinking only about ourselves, because that's what we said. So you should count, you should build yourself. So you should use your talent, you should use your abilities, and it can bring you to be proud, to pride. It can give you to look at others down. In other words, this is very dangerous stage. This is why the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died דווקא in ספירת העומר, because why did they die? Because שלא נהגו כבוד זה בזה. They didn't honor each other. 1 minute. תלמידים of Rabbi Akiva didn't honor each other? Really? Can this be true? It sounds ridiculous. We're talking about tzaddikim. But here we have to understand 2 points. Everybody is measured by his own level. And at a low level, it's a different measure than at a high level. Then also, there were the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. I don't know if there were any other yeshivas. Maybe there were, but nobody's talking about them, but that's not the issue. Because all the other Rabbonim didn't say what Rabbi Akiva said. Because Rabbi Akiva put the whole Torah on Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Nevertheless, it's written Ve'et Hashem Elokecha tira. You should be how do you say, have yirat shamayim from God. Et Hashem Elokecha tira. You should fear God. And Rashi at this passage says, if Rabbi Akiva didn't say it, I couldn't even dare to think about it. Says Rabbi Akiva Ve'et, and is always to tell us something else. Lerabot talmidei chachamim. A Talmid Chacham, a scholar, you should honor him and be aware of him the same way as you honor God, as you fear God. Wow, this is a level. Who can get to a level like this? So, this is only working on the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. They were unbelievable tzaddikim. And as they were the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva was the Rebbe. So there are what the Rebbe says, they have to practice. So the Rabbi Akiva said, the whole thing is on and you should honor your Talmid Chacham as you honor God. In other words, who is sitting in front of you? A Talmid Chacham. So can you get at that level? And let's see what our sages say about what really happened. So they say what happened there didn't honor each other is not what we think. They didn't get into the yeshiva and start shouting or talking nasty or do shaming to their friend. No, they honored each other unbelievably. But let's understand the level we are talking about. The Gemara tells us 12,000 pairs, couples, died from the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, which means 24,000. Why is the Torah telling us couples and not 24,000? Why do we need to have 12,000 couples and do the calculation and get to 24,000 pupils? Why is it not written 24,000? Because the problem was with the couple, or in other words, with the chavruta. There is a famous story on Choni HaMe'agel, a great tzaddik, that once he was going, and he was quite old already, he was going in the field, and he saw an old man planting a tree. I don't know how you say charuv in English, etz charuvim. How do you say charuv, do you know? Anybody know how you say charuv in English? This is the strong black thing. Okay, never mind. So this tree takes a long time till it grows and till it gives fruit. So he's asking this old guy, well, Saba, why do you plant this tree? You are not going to enjoy it. So this old man answered him, maybe I won't enjoy it. He said, oh, also your son will not enjoy it. He says, maybe also my son won't enjoy it, but maybe my grandson, my others, the next generation, third generation, fourth generation. And Choni HaMe'agel couldn't understand it. So he went to rest a little. And God put him to sleep for, I think, 60 or 70 years. So he wakes up after 70 years, and he sees a young guy taking fruit. The tree is a big tree. It's got fruits already. And this young guy is taking fruit from the tree. So he's asking him, who are you? He says, I am this and that. My grandfather planted this tree, and now I enjoy the fruits. So he goes to the Beth Midrash, understands, and realizes that you shouldn't only care about yourself and all your children, but even for the next third generation, fourth generation, which is a very, let's say, important lesson. But that's not the issue right now. The issue is that he goes to the Beth Midrash, he goes to learn, and nobody knows him. And they're even talking about his Torah, his Chidushim. But no, nobody believes him that he's Choni HaMe'agel, and he's got nobody at his level like to start learning. He's got no Chavruta. So he tells God, God, please take me. I've got nothing to do here. If I haven't got a Chavruta, I don't want to live. So Rabbah says in the same place, O Chavruta or Mituta. If you haven't got a Chavruta, if you haven't got somebody to learn with you, you're better off to be dead. So we understand the importance of the Chavruta. So now let's go back to the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. So the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, the problem was with the Chavruta. That's why the Torah is telling us, the Gemara is telling us, that there were 12 pairs, 12 couples. Because the problem was with the being together with your Chavruta. So what was the problem? We already understand that it's not like they insulted each other. So what is the level we're talking about? Let's say, for example, they were learning together, and one of the, let's say, your Chavruta had an unbelievable chidush, a beautiful new thing that you learned, and you were both so happy. But you, in this happiness, had a little thing in yourself thinking, why didn't I have this chidush? Why didn't I have this beautiful learning? This small thing, at the level of them, brought a plague on all the Talmidim. And why in Sfirat HaOmer? Because this is, okay, if the whole year around you would behave like this, God could say, okay, I understand. But when you are building yourself and Sfirat HaOmer, when you're counting the Omer, and you're not getting to the right level in using your own abilities, which the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva had great abilities, at this time you are judged even on a small thing. So this small thing at the level of the Talmid of Rabbi Akiva caused the death of 24,000 Talmidim. Okay. So understand everything is okay. So what is the connection to us? It's Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. Because our sages want to tell us a very important point. When you are building yourself, don't forget for a minute that you're not alone. Don't forget for a minute that you have your friends. The Hafta l'Reacha Kamocha is a basic thing. And especially important when you are building yourself with your own talent and your own abilities. So remember, you mourn a little in order to remember that this beautiful, joyful counting of building yourself to get to the Torah, you should be very careful with your friends. Think about your friends. This is the point. Because why do we come to Omer? As we said, as in the individual. And why is it together? Because the aim is to get to Matan Torah, to receiving the Torah, to taking the Torah. And this is Ma'amad Har Sinai. Vayichan Sham Yisrael ke'ish echad belev echad. In other words, they all of Am Yisrael were standing there in front of the mountains of Sinai to receive the Torah like one. And this is the aim, and this is what we're building to. We are building in order to get each one of us with his own abilities to the together, to the cloud, to be one. And how careful should we be in times like this of Sfirat HaOmer? This is why we have this reminder of the Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha ani Hashem. What is ani Hashem? And we'll see it in our parsha in a lot of places. Because a lot of the things are in your heart. People don't see what you do and how you feel. Here is written, Lo tisna achicha bilvavecha. You should not hate your friend in your heart. In other words, it's not enough not to show hatred. it's also not allowed to feel hate to your friends. Unfortunately, this is something that you've got inside, nobody sees. This is Ani Hashem. The fear of God is what is going to keep you from doing things that have only an outside meaning with no inner meaning. And this is worth nothing. As I always say, Abraham Avinu said to Avimelech, רק אין יראת אלוקים במקום הזה, והרגוני על דבר אשתי. Abraham says to Avimelech, Avimelech says to him, why didn't you tell me that Sarah is your wife? He says, you know why? You are unbelievable people. You're educated. You have laws. You have beautiful places. And you have unbelievable behavior. But there is one thing missing. Yirat Hashem. Fear of God. And if there is no fear of God, everything, when it gets to a point that is going to affect you, you are going to change to be a beast and you're going to kill my wife. Tell me. Sorry, you're going to kill me because you want my wife. Didn't it happen in history? Oh, it happened so much. And one of the hard reminder is the Holocaust. The German nation was the most sophisticated, educated society in the Western world. They were the first to give freedom of doing everything to the Jews. They were the first one. Tzaddikim. They said everybody is equal. We should give to Jews and all the minority the same rights as we give to our people. And they were the first to do it. So how can it be that a few years later, they came with a final solution to murder a whole nation? How? רק אין יראת אלוקים במקום הזה. There is no fear of God, there is nothing. ואהבת לרעך כמוך cannot exist without אני השם. Because ואהבת לרעך כמוך without אני השם, it's just a beautiful phrase. As we see that people use it all the time and sometimes in the worst places. Going against the Torah, what is ואהבת לרעך כמוך? You should love your fellow man, you have to let him to do whatever he wants. Yes? Is this right? It's wrong. It's more than we can talk about. It's wrong, so wrong that we cannot even understand how wrong it is. And we see it in the history. Those people, they loved each other, they loved everybody. They were unbelievable. But at the end of the day, who did they love? They loved their own. They had interest. They were not thinking about you. They were thinking about themselves. It looks good. It's good for politics. It's good for the society. It's good for the economical situation. It's good for this. But when it got to the point, if there is no fear of God, there is nothing. As we all know, when you love your children, sometimes you have to punish them. Sometimes you have to teach them. Otherwise, that's not love. And this is God for us. If we understand that God wants all the best for us and He gave us laws, so we have to do those laws. And sometimes, as the Torah says in the same psukim, you should not hate your fellow, your brother in your heart. Rebuke him. And you should not be responsible for the sins. You should not be the sinner because you didn't rebuke him. This is another unbelievable issue. People think, so you don't do anything. You love people, they do whatever. Everybody can do whatever they want. Is this love? No, this is not love. If your fellow Jews does something wrong, you have to tell him. Of course, there are ways to tell him, but you cannot ignore it. And you cannot say, everybody can do whatever he wants to. All those phrases that they use that have got nothing to do with the inner side. And that's exactly the point. Ani Hashem, what do you really think? What is your real effort? What is your real belief? Do you believe in God? Do you understand that God is our Father in heaven? He gave us all those beautiful, unbelievable things in order for us to be good. For example, and with this we end the lesson. We are not allowed to eat everything. And you go abroad and you see that all the going to go in, they want to, he's angry, so he goes in and he eats whatever he wants, every restaurant, every way. And we starve. We cannot eat anything. It's not kosher. And sometimes we think to ourselves, why? Why is this like this? But today the world understands it more than ever. There is this eating healthy that we didn't have in the old times. We used to eat everything. Today it's called junk food. And people understand that it's got an influence not only on your body, also on your soul. And in order to understand it, God sometimes shows us unbelievable things. For example, terrible thing that happened a few days ago. A young girl goes into a kosher restaurant, a kosher meaty restaurant, and eats by mistake a dairy dessert. And there's so many things happening, and she dies. Unbelievable. Why? Because she ate something she's not allowed to eat without knowing it. And this is what God is telling us. I'm not just telling you you're allowed to eat this, you're not allowed to eat that, because that I want it this way. Because I love you. And in order to be, and let's say to use your ability in the full, your talent, you have to eat healthy. And for a Jew to eat healthy is to eat kosher. Now we understand it more than ever. We see the influence. So, okay. In other words, those are not restrictions. Those are borders in order to build ourselves, to bring ourselves. This is that advantage, because God made a difference between us. Made a difference between us and all the others. So in other words, when we talk about when we're building ourselves now in Sfirat HaOmer, in counting the Omer, think about those things. Think about Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva. Think about is love of your friend can exist without the love of God? Definitely not. And maybe this is what's wrong today when we see all those shaming and other things that's happening around us. Ezrat Hashem. Let's hope that this year, after we had this Corona year, and we're still in it, and we're starting to get out of it, let's learn the lesson. Let's count the Omer in the proper way, as an individual, together, with everybody, and loving each other. Ani Hashem. Have a nice day. Have a good day. All the best.